Please be seated. Good evening. Welcome to the council meeting, and I am Councilor Janet Evans, the mayor. In June 2017, 72 of our residents tragically lost their lives in the fire at Grenfell Tower. I ask every member of the council to pay our deepest and continuing respects in the conventional manner by marking the moment with 72 seconds of silence now. Would everyone please stand? Please be seated. Item 1, the minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated with the correction of the Leader of the Opposition to Councillor Press in item 7. Are they agreed as a correct record? Item 2, does any member wish to declare a disclosable pecuniary or any other significant interest in any item being considered at tonight's meeting? Item 3, I would like to congratulate Josh Rendell on his marriage. Item 4, Chief Executive, are there any apologies for absence or lateness from this meeting?
Thank you. I've received apologies for absence from Councillors Cyron, Porter and Tanus Ritchie and Marshall. Quentin Marshall.
Yes. Item 5 is public speaking, which has been allocated entirely to the borough's youth council members, all of whom I welcome to full council. I will invite those who have registered in advance to speak to address council in turn for no more than 5 minutes each. A member of the leadership team and member of the principal minority party will then be able to respond for up to 2 minutes each. We have 8 young people who have requested to speak. Therefore, I invite everyone to be as brief as possible. Ms. Tallulah Imuvyeyi, please address the council.
Hello, I'm Youth Cabinet Lead of Community Safety, and I would like to touch on the fact that many young people worried that they won't be able to afford to live in the borough they grew up in. What is the council doing to ensure Kensington and Chelsea remains a place where people from all backgrounds can continue to call this place home? Thank you.
Councillor Campbell?
Thank you, Tallulah, for this. I think one of the few things that all councillors can agree on in this chamber is it's a wonderful place to live. And we absolutely want people who grew up here and live here and love the borough to continue to call it home. But I've got to be honest, you know, house prices and rents in this borough are some of the most expensive in London, if not in the whole of Western Europe. So there's a limit to what we can do to make things more affordable. Having said that, we really are trying to do our bit. So since I became leader, we've built or are currently on site building 536 homes with 293 social units. And when you add that to the homes built by our partners, developers and housing associations, that's 2,000 new homes since 2017. And just before Christmas, we agreed planning permission for Earls Court and Kensal, and that would be another 4,000 new homes over the next decades. To be eligible for social housing, you need to demonstrate a local commitment and usually have lived here for connection, and have lived here for 3 years. And I know that Jem, who's my lead member for housing, is looking at what else we can do, what more we can do to ensure that local people who've grown up here get more priority. We've also support low-income households with things like the council tax rebate, local support payments and low-income support payments, which altogether probably help about 15,000 people. So there's nothing more I'd like to do but to say, oh yes, you know, there's a silver bullet that would allow everyone who's born here and who grew up here to live here when they're grown up and adults. But the simple fact is there's nothing I can say tonight that will actually make that happen, but I hope I've given you some comfort to round the edges where we can. We are ensuring that the housing that we control goes to those who need it the most, and we will work, and we are continuing to work with partners and developers to carry on building new homes in the borough. Thank you.
Councillor Press.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for a very relevant question, Tallulah. The cost of living is something that our new Prime Minister has already made a priority and taken some small but very significant steps in the first 2 days to indicate the future. We know that affordable food and energy and job opportunities are essential, but having a secure, affordable home, as Councillor Campbell noted, is the basis of building a life, a career and a family in any borough in London. And I'm afraid the council's record on house building is shameful. It inherited its social housing estates and stock from the GLC in the mid-1980s. And as Councillor Campbell noted, it was only in 2017, and due to the Grenfell disaster, that the council built any new social housing for decades, relying before that on registered providers. So they have a lot of catching up to do. Our Labour manifesto is very clear about what needs to be done about housing. Build more social and affordable homes. How many of the planned new homes quoted are truly affordable? From 2022, the Labour Council in Westminster showed how it can be done, striking better deals with developers to increase the amount of affordable housing and setting tenures on all developments of 70% social affordable to 30% market, reversing the previous Tory trend. And all that in 4 years. It can happen here in this council, as we are still the richest in London. There are massive opportunities in the south of the borough, in Earls Court, in Lotts Road, as well as north in Kensal Canal side, to build more affordable homes. And now we have a confessed YIMBY as our lead member for housing. We look forward to more affordable housing in the postcodes, in his postcode and across the south. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Umayeye. Now, Ms. Salma Noor, please address the council. Turn on your mic, please. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Salma Noor and I am a general member of the Youth Council. As many females restrict themselves from girls-only swimming sessions due to the minority of female lifeguards, I would like to ask, what will the council do to ensure female swimmers feel comfortable enough to participate in activities with the female lifeguard? Thank you.
Thank you, Salma. Thank you so much for the question and coming in today. I know it can be quite nerve-wracking speaking to a huge bunch of people, but you've done tremendously well so far, so congratulations and everyone at the Youth Council as well. Of course, we want everyone to feel comfortable using our leisure services in RBKC, and I appreciate that having female-only lifeguards for female-only classes can be an important lesson when people are learning to swim. So our leisure services are run on our behalf from an organisation called GLL, and we work really closely with them to ensure that the needs of local residents are met. Wherever possible, GLL tries to get a female lifeguard in place for those people practicing swimming. However, unfortunately, there's quite a shortage of qualified female swimming lifeguards at the moment. So there's a big challenge, not across RBKC, but across the whole country in that regard. So what we're trying to do, we're working with GLL to actively recruit and train more female lifeguards and have opportunity to help more people get into that position. And if anyone wants to be a lifeguard, please do put your name forward with GLL. I'm sure they'd love to have you. What we're going to do as well, we're going to ask, and we're going to work with officers to work with GLL closer to see what further practical steps can be taken to advance this particular position. And so everyone can feel comfortable in the place that they want to learn to swim. More broadly, we're contributing more investment in our leisure services. So, for example, the Chelsea Sports Centre, we're having £1.3 million invested over that over the next few months. It is closing shortly, and that is from Section 106, which is money from developers to ensure that even the pool is getting a huge refurbishment in that particular part of the world. So our aim is not only to provide excellent facilities, but to ensure they are welcoming, inclusive, accessible, and so that everyone is able to take part of them. But thank you again, Salma, for coming in.
Councillor Nail, please respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Noor. That's a very important question. Women-only swimming sessions with female lifeguards are essential to true inclusivity, provide a safe and private and comfortable environment. They eliminate barriers, allowing women and girls to exercise without feeling vulnerable. This council must fund female-only lifeguard training locally to boost local female employment, and must mandate that leisure centers operators to staff women-only sessions exclusively with female staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Noor. Now, Ms. Tarana Akaven Misolei, please address the council.
Hello, my name is Tarane Achavan Masale, and I'm a general member of the Youth Council. Kensington and Chelsea have the third highest crime rate of all London boroughs, ranging from around 120 to 140 crimes per 1,000 people. How are you planning to lower this and improve safety for young people, especially in wards with the highest crime rate, such as Colville and Notting Dale? Also, what preventative measures are the council taking to ensure early intervention effectively curbs youth crime, rather than only funding reactive measures after crimes take place?
Councillor Thalasites.
Okay, I found a microphone that works. Thank you, Tarana, for your question. Keeping residents safe is one of the council's key priorities, and everybody should feel safe in their community, especially our young people. Our new community safety plan does set out how we will work with partners to reduce crime and tackle antisocial behaviour. And that was developed with input from local people, I think including the Youth Council as well, who helped with some walkabouts in key locations to understand what makes young people feel safer in their neighbourhoods. Crime has been falling in this borough, but we know there's more to do, and we will continue to work closely with the Met Police, who take the lead role in tackling crime, as well as schools, youth services and others. And we also know that prevention and early intervention are central to our approach. We provide training to professionals across the borough so that they can better identify the signs of harm and exploitation at an early stage. Intelligence is shared across agencies through a monthly serious youth violence and exploitation panel too. And we also work with the It Takes a Village campaign with residents, families and community groups to help people recognise those signs, know where to get help and access support sooner. We know that giving young people positive opportunities and trusted support networks and safe spaces is a really effective way to prevent crime in the long term. And I'm happy to arrange another session for the Youth Council with our community safety team if there are things specifically that you'd like us to take up. There's no single solution to reducing crime, but by combining prevention, early intervention, support for victims, rehabilitation and effective enforcement, I think we can make Kensington and Chelsea safer, especially for our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Reason, please respond for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you for that question, Tarani. I'm answering it as your opposition councillor for Colville, which is one of the wards that you mentioned in your question. So you're right, Colville does have a high crime rate, but most of it happens in and around Portobello Road under the market. The single biggest crime, as I'm sure you may be aware, is phone theft, which accounts for 33.8% of all crime in the ward. Mostly professional gangs from outside the area targeting tourists and visitors. Burglary and theft from vehicles make up around 11%, and drug offences last quarter were 1.89%. But the crime that worries me the most, and the one rising fastest among young people, is shoplifting to sell on. And that is a symptom of the cost of living crisis, which, by the way, this council is doing nothing to tackle. And here is where I think the council has lost its way. Portobello Road is an opportunity for crime, but it used to be an opportunity for something else too. It gave young people their first informal jobs and young entrepreneurs somewhere to try out a business idea with almost nothing else behind them. Marks and Spencer, Innocent Juices, both started life as market stalls. This council needs to curate the market again. That means bringing job opportunities back for young people, more youth markets, and subsidised or free stalls for young people with a business idea and nowhere else to start one. That is early intervention that actually works because it gives young people something better to do than the crime you are asking about. At the moment, we are only responding after the fact. And furthermore, tackling the issue of school exclusions in this borough, which are extremely high, should be a matter of priority for this council.
Thank you very much. Mr. Stanley Reynolds, please address the council.
Hello, I am Stanley Reynolds, the Head Youth Counsellor for Communities and Services. Recently, the Council fully transitioned its core business systems to a third party that operates overseas. The company has recently faced fierce backlash from activists who have filed lawsuits alleging the tech giant operates a surveillance machine by building massive digital dossiers and compiling detailed information profiles on over 5 billion people globally through ad tracking and target data. How can you ensure the privacy of Kensington and Chelsea residents are well protected from corporate overreach?
Thank you. Councillor Bennett, please respond for up to 2 minutes.
Thanks. Thanks very much, Stanley. Thanks for your question and for coming in this evening. You raise a really important point, and the first thing I want to say is that the Council takes the protection of residents' personal information extremely seriously. Whenever we use third-party technology providers, and as you'd imagine, we use a number, I think in this case you might be referring to Oracle, which we use as an ERP system, they act as a data processor, which means we remain responsible for ensuring that the data is handled securely, lawfully, and in accordance with UK data protection legislation. All our systems are subject to appropriate information governance, security and privacy assessments, and suppliers are required always to meet strict contractual requirements relating to data protection, cybersecurity, audit and incident reporting, and any international processing of data. And where data is processed outside the UK, additional legal safeguards are required to ensure that that personal information remains properly protected. So I just want to reassure you that protecting residents' privacy remains a priority for this council, and crucially, we're not only monitoring that, but we are looking for opportunities to strengthen those protections across our security and governance arrangements to ensure that personal information is always properly safeguarded. Thank you.
Councillor Marshall to speak, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Yes, you're right. The company mentioned, Oracle, is currently facing a class action lawsuit in the United States for breaching the laws of California and Illinois on data protection. Now, we in the UK have a higher standard of data protection than generally pertains to the United States. So it is a concern that this company is processing personal data on behalf of the council. Unfortunately, this council does have a very poor track record on protecting the data of its citizens. And last autumn, we experienced a very serious cyber attack. You and other residents are yet to be informed by the council of exactly what data of yours might have been stolen and therefore what risk you might be facing as we're several months on, and that's a real concern. Yet again, we know that when this council fails its residents, those residents have to wait a very long time for the council to do the right thing. Once more, we see, despite promises made in the Grenfell Tower inquiry response, governance and accountability is just not good enough in Kensington and Chelsea. We know there's a need for stronger contract management, and it's a Grenfell inquiry commitment that we take very seriously indeed. Just one example of how the council is failing in its contract management and governance duties is how it's let down the residents of the Lancaster West estate. We've seen repeated waivers and direct awards and extension of refurbishment contracts. And what that means is that when a new contractor comes in, they're not put to the test in the way that they should be and not scrutinised the way they should be. And that was precisely one of the risks that led to the poor appointments that led to the Grenfell Tower inquiry. It's a specific risk identified in the inquiry's report. So I'd like to thank you very much for that question. It's a really timely one and a really important one. The council has demonstrated it cannot safeguard the privacy of the citizens in Kensington and Chelsea, and it unfortunately has still not put in place the controls and protections required to safeguard its citizens from risk arising from its contract appointments a decade after Grenfell and months after the cyber attack. We on this side of the chamber promise to do what we can to ensure transparency and accountability and therefore successful control. Thank you.
Pleasure. And thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Now, Ms. Mayar Aboamna, please address the council.
Hello, my name is Maya Aboamna, and I'm the Deputy Youth Mayor of RBKC. My question is, based on official NHS and Children's Commission data, only 1 in 3 young people who need mental health support receive it, with average waits now over 300 days. What specific funded action will this council deliver in the next 12 months to speed up access to mental health provisions for under 25s locally? Thank you.
Councillor Knight.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Maya, for raising this very important matter. The figures you've quoted are deeply worrying. No one can deny that. Because behind every single one of them is a young person whose life has been put on hold and a family desperate to see them get the help that they need. And we can never lose sight of that. It's important to be clear, though, where the responsibility sits. Much of the delay is with the specialist NHS services, including CAMS, which are commissioned by the NHS rather than the council. But I appreciate that for a young person who's struggling, that distinction means very little. They're not thinking about who commissions what. They're wondering when someone is going to help them, and no child should have to become more unwell while they're waiting for support. Over the next 12 months, we'll keep investing in earlier support by meeting young people where they are, in their schools, youth settings, and communities. We're helping to embed mental health support teams in every school, funding a dedicated youth mental health worker through All Kind, and jointly funding COOTH with the NHS so young people can access support quickly, anonymously, and without the need for a referral. These services don't replace specialist care, but they do mean young people are supported sooner. And because those teams work closely with CAMS, it's easier to make sure young people get the support that they need. But none of this makes these waits acceptable. Earlier support is vital, but it isn't a substitute for specialist mental health care. Those services may be commissioned by the NHS rather than the council, but that does not lessen our responsibility to keep pushing until those waits come down. I'll be meeting the new Chief Executive of the ICB, Katie Fisher, in the autumn, and reducing these times will be one of the first things I raise with her. Because when a person asks for help, they shouldn't be left waiting. We're not there yet, and I don't think any of us should be comfortable with that until we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thaxter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mayor, for this very important and timely question. This current situation is unacceptable. I've lived in North Kensington partially all my life, and I've seen the problem that the 18 to 25-year-olds face. I've raised this on several occasions in scrutiny committee and in this chamber. The Conservatives don't care because it doesn't affect them. The reason why mental health services commissioned by the council hasn't worked is because it is poorly communicated and not always joined up with the NHS services. The services are not designed by young people, so it doesn't feel relevant to them. Okay? What we need is a trauma-informed, community-based mental health support for young people, which means program run by the people that know the community needs and delivered in spaces where young people go. This is on our manifesto, our Labour manifesto, because our residents are experiencing mental health between 18 to 25, even younger. And this is something that we are going to press this council until we get change for our local residents, because we are the one that are experiencing our neighbors, our family members, and our friends, and our residents symptoms. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Aboamna. Thank you. Now, Ms. Aisha Khan, please address the council.
Hello, my name is Aisha Khan, and I'm a general member of the Youth Council. My question is, the 2026 to 2027 budget includes a 4.99% council tax increase, as well as reduced council tax support for those who need it most. How will the council support low-income households in coping with these changes? And how will they ensure families with lower incomes are not disproportionately affected or forced to choose between paying council tax and affording essentials such as food and clothing? Thank you.
Councillor Will?
Is this what? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, put my glasses on. Thank you, Aisha, for that question. I want to say something about our current financial position because it's a tough one, and I think it explains the difficult decision we've had to make about taxes. We've always tried to be a financially efficient council and generous to our and provide the most generous support to our vulnerable residents. That's why we've had the 5th cheapest council tax in London, and up until last year, one of the most generous council tax support schemes in London, helping around 8,000 households each year with their council tax bills. As you may be aware, the current Labour government has reformed how council taxes are funded, and we now have to find 127 million of cuts out of our budget in the next 4 years. That's about 50% of our controllable budget. Last year, we found 20 million of savings. That's a record, and we're going to be doing the same for the foreseeable future. But unfortunately, that gap is so huge that we just can't do it with savings alone. And that means, regrettably, we've had to put taxes up. We've introduced a second homes tax for those who are more able to pay. But these kind of cuts mean that we've also had to make a small change to our council reduction scheme as well. Previously, there was 100%. Now it's gone to 90%. And that does mean some people will now have to pay a little bit more of council tax. I completely understand that for people struggling, that may already seem like a lot. We do have help about 15,000 people with a sort of cumulative £14 million support of local payment ports and low-income supports as well. And other kind of hardship funds. We know that's important. We'll continue to be as generous as we can. So just to reiterate, we know we are aware of this may be difficult for some people, but really our financial position is so difficult now. We have no choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Press.
Thank you. And thank you for that question, Aisha. This council might be facing more expenses than it has in the past, but it still is one of the richest in the country, and it can make choices. One thing that they cannot make noises about now is that they are the most unequal borough in the country. Council tax support is there to assist low-income households and vulnerable individuals in all boroughs to cover local council tax bills. That is why it has to be 100% if the need is assessed. You're so right that life for the poorest in this borough is becoming more and more difficult. Council tax for 2026-27 in this borough ranged from 1,111 for Band A properties, they are the lowest properties, up to 3,334 for Band H, the highest property. A difference of just £2,223 between properties worth around estimated £270,000 to properties worth 6 million or more. And there are properties in this borough of much, much more than 6 million. So by raising council tax this year by 4.99% across the board, and reducing council tax support by 90%, this council has doubled the burden on the poorest in the borough, and the likelihood of debt and debt collection and the costs it costs the council to collect those debts. And these debts are collected by bailiffs and can result in homelessness. And just to save £440,000 a year, when the tax on second homes raises much more. It's wrong, it's unfair,
Thank you
and
so
it
much.
should be turned round.
Now, Sumaya Jamal.
Good evening. My name is Sumaya Jamal and I'm the Cabinet Lead for Mental Health in the Youth Council. Only 37.3% of adult residents in RBKC voted in the most recent local elections. How does the Council plan to incentivise people to vote and contribute to a better borough whilst encouraging young people to become politically educated so they are more likely to vote when of age? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Addenbrooke, to speak.
Thank you, Sumaya, and thank you for your question. And as the lead member with responsibility for the Youth Council, it's great to see so many of you here tonight. I know firsthand how engaged you are and how passionately you feel about this borough. In May's local elections, 37.3% of voters cast their ballots. This was up on 2022 and slightly above the national average, which typically sits between 30 and 36%. That said, the Council is not complacent. We want to see more residents voting and the next generation to grow up seeing democratic participation as a normal and valuable part of local life. The Youth Mayor and Youth Cabinet elections are an important part of this. Last year, over 1,300 young people took part in voting for the Youth Mayor, a fantastic turnout that reflects high levels of interest and engagement amongst our younger residents. The Youth Mayor and Cabinet then go on to work on real projects that shape services and spaces for young people across the borough. So the experience doesn't end on polling day. It continues into genuine civic responsibility. You've taken part in co-designing our refreshed Charter for Public Participation, helped moderate key funding streams, including the cost of living grants and the Youth Internship Scheme, bringing a youth-led perspective to fairness and impact. You are actively contributing to the Council Plan engagement, making sure young residents' priorities are heard and shape our future direction. Alongside this, the Youth Council leads borough-wide campaigns, the Youth Mayor elections, organises our Young Leaders Awards, and works with schools, colleges and youth groups to strengthen youth voice in local democracy, all ably assisted by our youth participation team. You've heard a lot tonight about the Council's budgets, so we really would welcome a session with you to hear, so you can really understand the position we are in as a Council. So I hope Hashim will be able to organise that for us, because I think it's really important that you understand this going forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Councillor Beckett, please respond for up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Sumaya, for your question. It's a fundamental one that gets to the heart of why we're all in this place. I'm proud that at the last election, St Helens, the ward I represent, had the highest turnout of any ward in the in RBKC, and I think that's a testament to the campaign that was fought there. It was a campaign that was hard-fought. It was a fairly fought one. I think it was one with excellent candidates on all sides. So I think that partly answers your question, is when you get hard-working candidates that knock huge numbers of doors. Many, many people from this chamber were visiting my ward to try and get out the vote. I think that partly shows exactly that that's an answer to your question. How do you raise turnout? You campaign very, very hard and you campaign fairly. But I think that's only part of the answer. I think that people should want to engage with democracy. I think young people should want to engage with democracy. I think that I would wonder if some people here would agree with me or not, but I think to some extent people feel like democracy and the local services that are delivered, there's a separation between them. I think that is testament to the low turnout. I think one of the problems is that people don't see the services that are being delivered as being delivered necessarily by the elected representatives. And that isn't necessarily a criticism of this council. I think it's a criticism of all local government. That means that us as representatives, we have a duty to tell people the difference that we have made, whether that's us in the opposition or whether it's here in the majority party. So we need to be going out there, we need to be doing the bare minimum, which is replying to constituents and doing casework. But we also need to be telling people when we've had successes. If we do something well, whether it's the council, majority does something well, or we manage to get a casework win, we should be telling people about that, because they should feel like when they vote in that booth, it leads to something, it leads to change. And my last thing I'll say before I'm finished is, if you really, really want to get involved with politics, you want to make a difference, join a political party, get out there campaigning on the streets and find out what it's like. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Ms. Jamal. Ms. Maisie Thornton, please address the council.
Good afternoon. My name is Maisie Thornton, and I'm the Deputy London Youth Assembly representative for the Youth Council. And my question is, with 21 million in savings already found through voluntary redundancies and property efficiency, the council still needs to find roughly 130 million more by 2030. Once the one-off savings from staff redundancies and building sales are exhausted, what long-term structural changes will be made to protect the statutory adult and children's social care services? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rendell?
Oh,
you swapped.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming, Maisie, and thank you to all the Youth Council. I can see you're already engaging in politics very firmly, so it's great to see you here. And thank you for your question. As you rightly point out, as underlined by Councillor Will, the Council is indeed facing a huge financial challenge as a result of this government's fairer funding formula. Our investment in adult children's services means we currently have one of the best in the country. In fact, we were the first authority to ever obtain 3 consecutive outstanding verdicts from Ofsted in a decade. And in adults, we received an outstanding verdict from the CQC last year, only the second authority in the country to do so. So we're incredibly proud of the third-party valedictions and we're determined that our services remain the best in the country. But you're right to point out the scale of change that we need to make sure that we can make these savings, but also just to go beyond the one-off savings that we've already made. So it really requires long-term structural change. So how are we going to do this? It is going to be challenging. First of all, we're going to build AI into every service, which can bring information of all our children's records into one place. We're going to have a complete review of our operational estate, looking at where our offices are and what services they deliver. And yes, making sure our adults and children's services resources are going where it matters most, and that's to the front line and not the back line. With such a huge reduction of funding, we've got to make the most of what we're already giving to children and young people, and that is a fantastic trauma-informed statutory service, exemplary early years, exceptional schools. We have a lot in this borough already. We need to keep our children feeling safe and give them the best start in life, because this is the heart of all we do in children's services.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lowry.
Thank you for your question, Maisie. This is a local as much as a national scandal. On a local level, there are 3 ways councils like RBKC can raise funds: government grants, council tax and business rates. In spite of central government cuts since 2010, the council, which is run by the Conservative Party, has chosen to set unsustainably low rates of council tax for its richest residents, despite being the richest area of the country. It's prioritised tax benefits for second homeowners and allowed underspends to languish in reserves, overfunding for adult and children's social care. Over the past 15 years, Kensington and Chelsea has privatised all social care provision and closed all council-run care homes. Meanwhile, in Hammersmith and Fulham, just our neighbouring borough, the Labour-run council has made home care free at the point of use. As one of their first flagship policies for the people, politicians make choices. Our adult social care system is broken on a national scale, and its demise is the sad legacy of 14 years of underfunding from a Conservative central on austerity. From the election of a Tory government in 2010, central government core funding of local government per person dropped by 26% in a decade. Exacerbated by exploitation of underpaid care staff and demands of the work they face, by July 2024 there were over 150,000 staffing vacancies in the social care sector, one of the highest rates in our entire economy. Elections have consequences. Following the election of our Labour government in 2024, one of their first acts was to pass the Employment Rights Act, backing the first ever fair pay agreement for care workers with £500 million. Following on from this, we've seen the number of vacancies in the social care sector under this Labour government fall down to the lowest level in over a decade, now safely under 100,000. Even more significantly, the introduction of a national care service, with the commission currently underway, chaired by Baroness Casey, means that in our lifetimes we will finally see social care brought up to the same level and respect as general health care. So, Maisie, while there still may be a long way to go, politically we are in a better place nationally, and if they want to achieve anything, they should stop undermining our elected Labour MP, our elected Labour Mayor and our Labour government, and work with us to improve adult social care and children's social care. Thank you very much for the question.
Thank you, Ms. Thornton. I think we need to give our young people a round of applause. Enjoy your summer break. Do members have any petitions to present? If so, please could you read just the prayer? Councillor Kamali.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Yes, we received one today, and the prayer is to stop whole food deliveries on Elliston Place. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very specific. So we will move to item 7. We'll have the Leader of the Council to address the meeting for up to 5 minutes, please.
Madam Mayor, where else to start tonight but with the fantastic questions from our Youth Council? It's really great to see so many young people in the chamber because, you know, nearly 1 in 5 of our residents is under 18. So I'm addressing them now. You know, you're not a minority interest or an agenda item. You are a fifth of Kensington and Chelsea and 100% of its future. Because here is the truth. This borough belongs to you as much as it belongs to anyone. And that is why so much of this council is built around you. It is there in our outstanding children's services, as Catherine said, supporting families from the earliest days of a child's life. It's there in our schools, which are among the finest in London. It's there in our youth clubs, our libraries, our leisure centres, our parks and playgrounds, the places where growing up in this borough actually happens. And it's there in our promise, made after the darkest night in this borough's history, that we would listen to our young people properly and never stop. But I didn't come here just to list what the council does. I came to ask something of young people, which is please tell us what you think of the services on your doorstep, because you use them, you know them, and you can help shape them. Get involved, stay involved, and help us shape this borough's future. Madam Mayor, on to other matters, and this week we have a new Prime Minister. And of course I wish him well. We should always back our leaders to succeed. But, Madam Mayor, I'm genuinely worried about what he means for our city. Mr. Burnham has built his policies on rebalancing power away from London, and it's becoming clear what that looks like in practice. A city treated as a bank to rinse, more taxes out, less money back for our residents. Madam Mayor, this council will fight for our capital city with everything we have. And it's a vital fight because what our new Prime Minister does not realise is that when London succeeds, the country succeeds. It is not and cannot be a case of taking from London to give to Manchester. It's the very definition of stealing from Peter to pay Paul, and that approach is destined to fail. But, Madam Mayor, we don't have the luxury of waiting for the government to get its house in order. Our residents need a council that acts now on what it can control. So over recent weeks, we've been meeting with our staff and residents about our plan for KNC 2030, an overarching vision for how this council will look and operate by the end of the decade. And Madam Mayor, the context in which we're operating is well known, though perhaps not yet to Councillor Press, who still thinks we're a rich council. We have a government-induced funding gap of £127 million, a mansion tax on family homes with half the borough in scope, a housing crisis showing no signs of abating and crying out for new solutions. And I cannot overstate the challenges we face. If we get this wrong, if we don't modernise, adapt and fundamentally change the way we work, then the very future of this council is at stake. And that is why, over the course of this summer, we've been doing unglamorous work of preparing the council for the years ahead. We are embedding artificial intelligence, not as a gimmick, not as a headline, but as a genuine tool to make our services faster, our processes leaner, and our money go further. We are looking at every service we deliver, asking ourselves, is it truly delivering what we want for our residents? We're reviewing our operational estate, making sure it works for what the residents need, not just for what our staff need. Because, Madam Mayor, we cannot meet a funding gap of £127 million doing things exactly as we've always done them. We cannot meet a housing crisis of this scale with yesterday's tools, and we cannot ask our staff to do more with less unless we're honest enough to change how they work. Our vision is a smaller council, but a stronger one. Leaner in how we spend, sharper in how we decide, better for the people we serve. Modernising so that every pound we have goes further for the people who need it the most. And I am not pretending it will be easy. But inaction is not an option. Inaction means our residents lose out. So, Madam Mayor, let me end where I began, with the Youth Council. Because everything I've set out tonight is not an end in itself. We must make sure that the borough we hand over to those young people is stronger than the one we inherited. That is the job in front of us, and this council intends to do it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Press.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And it's lovely to agree with Councillor Campbell on one thing, that it was really great to hear from members of the Youth Council tonight, and thank them for their very informed comments and challenging questions, which raised some very interesting answers. Andy Burnham has already said he will make a priority of the rising unemployment of young people in this country and in this borough. He make it a priority and respond by strengthening technical education and apprenticeship systems. But before I return to youth, I'm sorry, Councillor Campbell, but when London succeeds, the rest of the country often loses. Your manifesto is based on fairness. You know that by the fact that your party is so challenged by reform, by people in the north who have lost hope because of where the finances have gone over the last 14 years. The fair funding formula is going to knock this council, but it is fair to the whole country. And regardless of your calculations, that due to the property distortions in this borough, you will be challenged. But as we've already said, there are choices. There are choices about having fairer bandings on your council tax. There are choices about how you raise that council tax on second homes. And there are also choices about youth services, which I want to return to at the moment, because in the last year, unemployment has risen to the highest levels since the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, with young people bearing the brunt. This is the result of the last 14 years' austerity. And in this borough, locally, many NEETs are school age but excluded, and the lack of adequate support for excluded children is just one of the many problems that youth services face in KNC. And in the northeast of the borough and Goulburn, there are financial decisions to be taken. One of the most deprived wards in England, services and support for young people are almost non-existent. Goulburn Youth Club closed at the end of March 2025. It's located underground in a basement and suffered chronic damp, mould and lack of timely repairs. So it was too unhealthy for young people to use, and it was closed for repairs 16 months ago. Another RBKC-owned site in Goulburn was meant to be made available to host the club on a temporary basis, and Young KNC ran a grant programme and open bidding process for the lease, and local voluntary organisations are ready to manage it. However, this building also remains closed. Meanwhile, another RBKC building, Oxford Gardens, has also closed. Oxford Gardens housed some early help family services, particularly the youth justice teams who work with young people who've offended or at high risk of offending. And why did it close? In a basement with chronic damp, mould and no regular repairs. What is it with this council and repairs and where they choose to place their money? How can young people in the north of this borough, facing an almost non-existent job market, remain hopeful, motivated and engaged with us when there are so few locations where they can safely meet each other and get the support and develop skills and confidence they need and we need to face the austerity and challenges ahead? Young people in the teens and 20s need to be out in society with each other in the community, not alone with a computer in their bedroom. Youth hubs are not a luxury, they are an essential. Later tonight, we're going to hear praises for amazing spaces in the borough and the millions of pounds this council is choosing to commit to turning some local streets into Disney-like piazzas of expensive granite stone, expanding space for new overpriced bistro. This council has the budget and money for these vanity projects. Well, the Labour Party, and I'm sure many young people who came here tonight, would think that well-resourced, well-run and safe youth hubs are amazing places, which can lead to amazing people and amazing local communities.
Thank you very much.
I'm just finishing. This council should be aiming to ensure an amazing youth club in every ward.
Thank you. Item 8, in accordance with standing orders, I rule that the order of business shall be as published. Item 9, in the supplementary papers, you have the report from leadership team to receive the annual Treasury outturn report. I now invite Councillor Campbell to propose the report's reception and Councillor Will to second.
I'd like to propose the report, Madam Mayor.
I beg to second.
Would anyone like to speak to this? Councillor Peter Marshall? No? Okay. I assume Councillor Campbell does not wish to sum up? Thank you. Item 10, there is one report from the Administration Committee with constitutional amendments and the Ethics Panel annual report, and one from Appointments Panel to designate the Executive Director of Finance and Assurance as the Section 151 officer. I will take the items together. Would Councillor Will formally propose the report's reception and Councillor Addenbrook second?
I beg to move.
I beg to second.
Would Councillor Will like to speak to the reports?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would Councillor Addenbrook like to speak?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Does any other member wish to speak? Councillor Press.
Yes, I would like to note on behalf of the Labour group the work of the Independent Ethics Panel, who've done an amazing job over the last year. I wasn't here, but on behalf of the Labour Group, we would like to recognise the work that they put in. There were a number of complaints and issues around the Code of Conduct, and they have dealt with that in an extremely professional and very, very helpful way, which has helped some constitutional things. So we would really like to thank them all and note in the minutes that we are doing that and how much we value their work. Thank you.
Councillor Will, would you like to sum up?
Thank you.
I don't think we need a formal summing up other than to thank the officers who worked on this, and indeed agree with Councillor Press's comments for the work about the Ethics Committee. It was a very difficult situation. I think they managed it admirably, so thank you to them.
Does Council agree to adopt the recommendations as stated in the report? The recommendations are adopted. Item 11. There is no report from Overview and Scrutiny Committee or any of the select committees. Item 12. We have notice of 4 questions to lead members. Would Councillor Idris put her question to Councillor Kamali, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Wiltshire Close is a diverse and vibrant community of 214 homes across 5 blocks, ranging from studio flats to 4-bedroom properties. The estate is served by 6 lifts installed around 2011-12. Although these lifts may be considered relatively new, they are now breaking down almost every week. When residents asked council officers why the lifts cannot be replaced, they were told they are too new. However, if these lifts are failing this frequently, shouldn't the ongoing cost of repairs, contractor call-outs, and disruption to residents be weighed against the cost of installing reliable replacement? The impact on residents is severe. One lift can no longer be used by people living on the 3rd floor, forcing them to walk up and down a flight of stairs every time they leave and return home. Many are carrying shopping, pushing prams, or relying on walking aids. For elderly and disabled residents, this is more than inconvenience. It can be effectively, it effectively leaves them trapped in their own home. My question, does the lead member consider this situation acceptable? If not, what immediate action will he take to improve the reliability of these lifts, and will he commission a review to determine whether replacing them would provide better value for money than continuing with continuous repair? Thank you.
Councillor Kamali.
Thank you, Councillor Idris, for raising this question. The breaking down of lifts is something that happens all over the borough, and I do recognise just how impactful it can be from the World's End to Trellick Tower in the north, and obviously here at Wiltshire Close. We have looked at these lifts. I'm happy to say that 95% of the times they've broken down, they've been up and running within 4 hours, but that does mean 5% of the time they aren't. The issue with those particular lifts is that the roller guides that help the lift go up and down, when we replace one side, it wears more heavily on the other. That causes the lift to get stuck. What we're now doing is taking a slightly more proactive approach rather than endless reactive maintenance, which is far more sensible. The proactive approach is to make sure that we have new molds made for these guides, such that we can replace them all at once rather than having to do them in sort of piecemeal fashion. But just on the wider point of lifts around the borough, because I know other members here will have interest in that, it is one of those that we are absolutely determined to resolve. I know there are great numbers of issues up in Trellick, up in Golborne, but also down at the World's End Estate, and I'm looking forward to getting those lifts up and running as soon as possible. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Councillor Idris, do you have a follow-up question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank my friend for his answer. Thank you.
Next, Councillor Hammond, please put your question to Councillor Thalasites.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to ask the lead member for Resident Services, Planning and Enforcement to update the Council on steps that will be taken to preserve the appearance of the new pavements in Gloucester Road against the problem of greasy staining from residents' waste bags.
Councillor Thalasites.
Thank you, Councillor Hammond, for raising this issue. I share your frustration with the greasy waste that's left on pavements on Gloucester Road, and as a local resident, I also want it to be made as clean and safe as possible. I've asked officers to have street enforcement go and carry out patrols and targeted visits to businesses on Gloucester Road South to provide advice where necessary and remind them of their obligations in terms of when to leave out time-banded commercial waste collections. We're also considering enforcement action where non-compliance is witnessed in line with policy and legislation. And we will be considering the use of community protection notice powers where necessary as well. This will begin with formal written warnings, and where it persists, it can lead to formal notices being issued. And once any initial warnings have been served, we will be arranging for the area to receive a full jet wash, restoring it to the standard that residents rightly expect and how we expect the pavement to remain. I will continue to monitor the situation closely and won't hesitate to use enforcement powers that are available to us where businesses fail to meet their responsibilities.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hammond, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm grateful to the answer, and I know my constituents who live around Gloucester Road South will also be grateful that this work is being done. Does he agree, though, that this is not just relevant to Gloucester Road South, but also is relevant to all of our high streets in the borough? And it's the first stage to controlling the broken windows syndrome, that if we have, does he agree that if we have clean spaces, graffiti-free, it deters crime, it creates a nice environment, and it's a better environment for residents and it keeps them safe?
Yes, I agree with Councillor Hammond's assessment of the broken windows theory, and I've been sitting down with colleagues throughout the past couple of weeks, in the past couple of days alone, with colleagues in Queensgate, Camden, Norland, all of whom have reminded me the importance of clean streets, and we're considering further targeted enforcement action in places like Kensington Church Street, Holland Park Avenue and Gloucester Road North as a result, and we will continue to do this work all over the borough.
Thank you very much. Councillor Goldfinger, please put your question to Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Residents have raised concerns about the continued closure of Pembridge Hospice. Can the lead member update members on where things stand and what the council has been doing to secure the future of NHS specialist palliative care in the borough?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you. I'm grateful for residents for raising this matter. Firstly, Pembridge Hospice itself is not closing. NHS North West London formally closed its inpatient unit last July after it had been suspended since 2018 because of workforce challenges. Pembridge continues to provide outpatient clinics, day hospice services and 24-hour hospice at home care, with no plans to withdraw it. But that does not lessen what losing these beds means for residents and their families. When someone needs specialist end-of-life care, being able to receive it close to home with the people they love nearby matters enormously. That is why members across this chamber have fought for years for this unit to reopen, challenging the NHS at every stage. This has never been about party politics. It's been about standing up for residents and the care that they deserve. Our position has always been clear: reopen the beds whilst investing properly in community care. We formally opposed any option that kept this unit closed, and in making that case, we challenged the NHS on what the closure would mean for residents, for patients, how far families would have to travel, and whether people in North Kent and our most deprived communities had been properly heard. And when serious questions remained unanswered, lead members from RBKC and Westminster set out those concerns directly in writing to senior NHS leaders. Ultimately, I believe this closure is part of a wider NHS shift away from inpatient beds and towards community-based care, as we also saw with the closure of the mental health beds at the Gordon. And I believe financial pressures to be part of what is driving the shift. So we are not simply challenging one local decision, we are challenging the direction of a wider NHS system. The NHS is committed to 15 million over the next 5 years to expand specialist palliative care in the community. That means extended community teams, better psychological improvement support, a 24-hour advice line, and 4 enhanced end-of-life care beds in our borough. We do not yet know where those beds will be, but I will keep pressing them to be placed where the need is greatest. This is not the outcome we wanted, but the NHS has made clear commitments, and we will ensure that it delivers on them. Our residents deserve nothing less.
Councillor Goldfinger, do you have a follow-up question?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Knight. That was very, very informative, and this is an incredibly important aspect to our borough. Given the strength of local feelings about Pembridge Hospice and the history as a community asset, is there any scope for the council to formally designate the building as being for community use, so its value to residents is protected as decisions about the future are taken?
Thank you. This side of the chamber fully supports the campaign being led by local residents to safeguard Pembridge for community use, and we will back them however we can. But I also want to be clear about what is within the council's control. Pembridge is part of St Charles Hospital, which is owned by the NHS, and as I have said, continues to provide outpatient services. The building remains in the NHS hands, and the NHS has given no indication at all that it plans to sell it. So we are not in a position to simply decide its future. But our role does not end there. I will keep pressing the NHS to be clear about its long-term plans, and we will work with residents to explore every option, including a possible nomination as an asset of community value. Pembridge may be owned by the NHS, but its value belongs to the community, which it has served for so many years. If the NHS plans to change that, we do not want to see it simply sold off to the highest bidder. So we will use every power available to protect its community value and ensure residents' voices are heard in any decision about its future.
Thank you very much. Councillor Shaw, can you please put your question to Councillor Will?
What impact has, thank you, Madam Mayor. What impact has the removal of the council tax discount for low-income families had on the mental health and well-being of residents following the 5,000 households in RBKC now paying council tax for the first time after previously receiving relief?
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. I'm going to try and not repeat too much of what I said earlier, and obviously I did cover that with the Youth Council. I think the short answer to your question is we don't have any such data. But as I mentioned, we do have various supports like the Local Support Fund, and we are very conscious that, as I said, that some people will struggle, and we want to carry on supporting people. I think it's probably worth mentioning, particularly as Councillor Rees mentioned, cost of living crisis. We're not supporting it. We're not pursuing anyone for council tax who are not paying at the moment. We are very conscious of the economic times that have been forced on us, partly by, I'm afraid, your government, and we will continue to do our best to support the most vulnerable in this community. But I think I just have to say, you know, these are all hard choices, and there are going to be more hard choices. There is no world when you save 127 million that you don't have hard choices and that you can entirely protect the vulnerable. And that's a horrible, horrible position to be in. And I think, you know, perhaps the better question from colleagues on the other side is, how can you work with us constructively? How can you lobby your government to think again about fairer funding? And I'm really I'm not trying to be controversial here. You know, there are things you can do instead of asking, frankly, fairly, I think, open-ended, subjective questions that obviously I don't have data for. You know, this is an invidious position, and we are all going to have to try and be constructive in what we can do to work together to make sure the most vulnerable are protected. But as I say, more hard choices to come, I'm afraid.
Councillor Shaw, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The cost of living is a major concern for many of our residents, as we heard from our Labour leader earlier in this chamber. And the current government, Labour government, has already, as of this week, been making moves to address this with cuts to the cost of energy and transport. Adding one more bill for 5,000 families in Kensington and Chelsea adds further cost of living stress to our most vulnerable residents in this borough. According to figures from Citizens Advice, the number of council tax support cases in June rose by 79% compared to the January to May average, and based on figures already in July, is set to rise again. We ask the lead member follow-up questions. Firstly, can you start collecting this data on the impact on mental health for our residents? Is adequate support being provided to residents to manage cost of living concerns? And will the council reinstate the full council tax discount for our most vulnerable residents in the interest of their well-being? Thank you.
Councillor Will.
Thank you. I'm certainly happy to go back and ask the question about data. I think with the greatest respect, and I know this is a serious question, I think it's quite hard to just say that someone's mental health is deteriorated because of the council tax. It may well be a factor, I don't dispute that, but it could be to do with the breakdown of a relationship, a bereavement, and I think I'd be a bit nervous about trying to attribute those things. So, but I'm happy to go and ask that question about the data and have a further discussion with her afterwards if she so chooses.
Thank you. Item 13, could the following members please speak for up to 2 minutes each on a ward or other live issues that are primarily local in nature? Councillor Hardesty.
Good evening, everyone. Today, I would like to again raise the issue of the Central Line tube noise affecting residents in Notting Hill. First, I want to reassure residents that we will continue to press for action and advocate on their behalf. However, I do want to make clear that the responsibility for resolving this problem ultimately relies with TfL. In 2025, TfL removed the noise dampening pads between Notting Hill Gate and Holland Park Tube Station. There was no public notice, no consultation with residents, and no replacement mitigation was installed. Since then, residents across Notting Hill have endured persistent and intrusive vibration and rumbling in their homes. The level of local concern is clear. A petition launched by the four ward councillors in Pembridge and Norland has attracted over 200 signatures in just a few weeks. And this morning, I wrote a letter to Andrew Lord, TfL's Transport Commissioner, and copied Joe Powell, the Labour MP for Kensington and Bayswater, urging them to address this issue at pace. At the last council meeting, we heard from Anise Lombard, a Pembridge resident. She estimated that tube noise may be audible at her property as many as 570 times each day, and this is unacceptable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Youngson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In May In March this year, I took a petition from Redcliffe Ward to TfL and the GLA in relation to the transport on Redcliffe Gardens and Finborough Road, which our residents have constantly complained about. Over the hundreds of meetings that we've had with residents on the doorstep and after the petition was filed, I call upon the lead member for transport to continually work with TfL to get both roads remedied. There are issues with the speed of vehicles and the speed of the trucks, and there are issues with the pavement where residents are falling and tripping, and it's making it very, very dangerous for people in wheelchairs, people with pushchairs, and people who have mobility issues to move around the ward. So I ask the lead member to continually follow up with TfL to make sure that the roads can be improved for all of our residents, and they can also liaise with the Police and Crime Commissioner to make sure that enforcement of the speed is kept low on those roads. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 14. Oh, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the Royal Marsden Hospital, which is in my ward, along with 2 other hospitals, I'm very proud about that, is celebrating its 175th anniversary. And it was the world's first dedicated cancer hospital, and arguably one of the world's best in terms of care, research, and treatment of cancer. So a fitting way of recognising that was that the planning permission was granted to the hospital last week for a significant expansion of their hospital. It's going to be over 50%. It's going to bring in more research, more care units, more theatres, state-of-the-art diagnostics. So pleased that they work very hard with local people in terms of addressing the concerns on it. But I think we have to recognise that it will have a big impact on local residents. It's a very tight site. It's a 3-year build. And we will be taking, with my fellow ward councillors, a very active role in looking at the construction management traffic plan. But I just wanted to record, as I say, thanks for the fact that that's been granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Press?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Temporary and concrete anti-terror barriers were first put in place in Portobello Road in July 2025 following a police directive, and residents understood the need for this as a temporary measure given recent hostile vehicle attacks in Manchester. We've got about 15 barrier blocks blocking vehicle access from 10 in the morning till 4 from Chepstow Villas in the south all the way through to Goulburn Road, blocking any vehicle access or exit from a number of mews and 2 large council estates, Longlands and Portobello Court, and that's every day except Sunday. Access or exit is arranged by a phone call to one of 4 marshals who then come to the barrier. This can take anything from 20 to 40 minutes. This is severely restricting residents' movements or their ability to have deliveries, contractors, and has made them late for hospital and other appointments. Affected residents have been working hard with Highways and Market Office to try to improve access, but last month the notices went up in the market from Highways announcing the road closure would now be 7 days a week due to Sunday markets. The situation is, I'm afraid, now intolerable, especially for the residents with mobility problems and blue badges living in the 2 estates. We all appreciate that our newly married lead member, Councillor Rendell, came straight back from his holiday and did come down to the Market Street Action Group last night to discuss the problem and will be taking things forward. But there does not not appear to be any urgency within the council's key departments around this. Market traders and affected residents have agreed that they would like to try a pilot where the market closes in the middle of the week and the road is open in exchange for a Sunday market. So can the leadership team and the full council please put its legal and other expertise onto this issue, as currently I fear we're legally discriminating against disabled residents. Thank you.
Members will see that we have 7 motions printed in the agenda. Members will see that we have 7, that there is an amendment to motion 2 that should have been ruled invalid as it is contrary to Standing Order 16, and it will not be taken. If Motion 1 is about extending waste and litter collections. Would Councillor North formally move the motion and Councillor Dodd Noble second?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I beg to move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I beg to second.
I now invite Councillor North to speak for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I must just start with, I was very honoured to meet with the Youth Council just recently on behalf of the Environment Select Committee, and a subject that was very much in their thoughts before this council meeting was a subject that we're now going to talk about in this motion. And as we start our new civic term, I feel that it's important that this motion is forms a united chamber behind it. And let's put our party political views just aside for tonight for this motion. Because this motion is simple at its core. It is to extend waste and litter collections, but we can go further. During the last local elections, I canvassed every ward in this borough. Whether it was in the north of the borough, whether it was in my own ward of Camden, or whether it was in Chelsea, consistently near the top of most residents' priorities was to get those basics right, which includes their environment, and in particular, refuse and clean streets. This council has London's only twice-weekly bin collections. We have invested in more street sweeping, jet washing, graffiti busting, and we have a good record. I feel that together we can do even more. Now, I'm grateful to my colleague, Councillor Dodd Noble, for so enthusiastically joining me in this motion and making his maiden speech this evening. And it means a lot to both of us, and we believe our residents in Camden and Queensgate wards too. Now, I was asked by one member of the opposition to avoid bashing our MPs and the Mayor of London, now Lord Sadiq Khan. So I can confirm that I will listen to the voice of Councillor Reason and bite my lip and promise not to apportion any blame to either of them tonight. However, it is important to put this motion into a very serious context, and as we've already heard from our leadership tonight, whatever our party political views, we must be honest with our residents with the cold truth. This and other inner London councils face a deal with new funding formulas. So despite those challenges tonight, colleagues, I believe that we have an opportunity to unite around a very simple motion that gives that reassurance to all our residents, no matter how they voted, that this council will extend waste and litter collection, but go further. So let's keep this motion very simple. It only asks us tonight to agree 2 things. To maintain that all-important twice-weekly bin collection that our residents want. To go further by using new technology, extend enhanced ways of collecting waste, how we recycle, how we tackle graffiti, fly tipping, and to keep our roads pothole-free. What's not to love or support tonight? In 2022, I brought forward a motion as my maiden speech to better tackle graffiti in this borough. And I'm grateful to our leadership team, officers and colleagues that we acted on this motion and we removed some of the red tape that was stopping us from moving graffiti. We increased our graffiti teams, and I believe that we can go further tonight. We have trialled electric buggies in some areas. If this is successful, can this be extended? Laser graffiti removal is a new technology that's been working in some areas in London. Our wardens now have new powers to act and have been successful. Camden residents are pleased the way that fly tipping, builders' rubbish and some antisocial behaviour has been dealt with. So may I ask the lead member, and a subtle hint, this is something that we may be scrutinising in the Environment Select Committee, tonight, if we approve this motion, will we give our public the reassurance that this council will maintain our valued twice-weekly bin collections, look at improved ways to recycle our waste, including food waste, more jet washing, especially in key areas of high footfall like Notting Hill Gate, and also to review the use of technologies such as electric buggies and laser graffiti removal, and ensure Kensington-Chelsea roads remain pothole-free. Colleagues, even if we must accept this fairer funding formula, even if we need to consider the other taxes being hatched against Kensington and Chelsea, schools taxes, mansion or higher property value taxes, tourist taxes, employment taxes, possible land or other wealth taxes, at least on this simple issue, let's show our residents that we can unite tonight and vote to extend waste and litter collections in the Royal Borough of Kensington-Chelsea. And look, no bashing of an MP, no bashing of our Mayor of London. So thank you.
Councillor Dodd? Dodd Noble, excuse me, formally second the motion.
Thank you very
already
much.
did that. Do you want to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, fellow councillors and members of the public, and Councillor North for bringing this motion. As a new councillor for Queensgate, I would first like to thank my predecessors, Councillor Whedon-Sands and Lane, for representing Queensgate so well. I would also like to thank Councillor Mackover for showing Councillor Whitley and me the ropes as we settle into our new roles. Madam Mayor, unlike many of my colleagues, I am a relatively recent arrival, having moved from Wandsworth to Kensington and Chelsea just 4 years ago. It is therefore a great honour and a privilege to serve as a ward councillor for Queensgate, where my mother lived, right next to where my uncle had a stationery business, and just down the road from Christchurch, Kensington, where my parents were married. And that brings me to the question, what makes Kensington and Chelsea so special? And why do I have such a sense of pride in calling this borough home? Is it because that within these 7 square miles we have some of the greatest museums in the world, the Royal Albert Hall, Portobello Road? Is it our garden squares, our muses, our pubs and our churches? Perhaps. But I think what really makes this borough special is something much simpler. It is the streets themselves, the communities of people that live on them, and the pride we take in calling this place home. I was recently speaking with a business owner in my ward who, after successfully organising a Platinum Jubilee street party for the late Queen, is planning another street party on Gloucester Road this September. I doubt he is doing it solely to sell more Chelsea buns, but rather it brought the community together to raise money for a local charity. That sense of community is why people care so deeply about this place. And when people care deeply about a place, they expect it to be looked after. We have inherited an extraordinary borough steeped in history, but our responsibility is not simply to admire it, but to look after it. And that brings me to the motion before us. Madam Mayor, I wholeheartedly second Councillor North's words. Our wonderful council is quite rightly held to exceptionally high standards by our residents when it comes to street cleanliness. And rightly so. A clean street is, of course, just a clean street. But it is something much more than that. It is an expression of civic pride. And clean streets show us that we respect the public spaces that we share with our neighbours. Despite significant reductions in funding from central government, we are bringing forward this motion to urge the leadership team to continue delivering on the majority party's manifesto commitments. This council has London's only twice-weekly bin collection. We have invested in more street sweeping, more jet washing, and more graffiti removal. These are not glamorous services, but they are the basics that residents notice every single day. Time and again, when speaking to residents across this borough, I hear the same message. Keep our streets clean and continue making this the very best place to live, work, and visit in London. This is not an issue that is ever truly solved. Every day brings new visitors, new deliveries, new cardboard boxes, and the aftermath of a Fox's raid on the rubbish. Keeping a borough like ours clean is not a one-off task, it is a constant commitment. And that is why I welcome this motion. Not only does it protect what residents already value, but it looks to go further through the rollout of an electric buggy in every area of our borough and by exploring time banding for commercial waste collection in our most sensitive and beautiful public spaces. Whether it is the village feel of Thackeray Street, the bustling promenades of Gloucester Road, or the grand Victorian terrace of Queensgate, or indeed every street across our borough, our public spaces deserve to be clean and well cared for. I'm proud to support this motion and proud to represent Queensgate and proud to play a small part in keeping Kensington Chelsea the finest borough in London. Thank you.
And we thank you for your maiden speech. Well done. Councillor Rossi.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you also, Councillor Dodd Noble, for your excellent maiden speech. Thank you. So I also agree wholeheartedly with the motion, and I urge the leadership team to continue with our twice-weekly bin collections, and I am particularly grateful for the clear-all system that we have in rubbish hotspots in the borough. Clean streets are very important to us, as they are to most of our residents. I contact Streetline almost every day to get some rubbish removed, and we all know that residents contact us frequently about this issue. We offer a great service, but it is not perfect. We need to have a conversation with our residents about how to dispose of their rubbish responsibly. I was walking home the other day with an ex-councillor, and she told a resident that he should not be putting out his rubbish at 8 p.m. in the evening. We were roundly abused, but what struck me was that he genuinely thought it was okay to put rubbish out at that time. We all know that we shouldn't put our rubbish out the night before collection days, and we also know that if we do this, it has a contagion effect. But this fellow was blissfully unaware, and also seemingly unaware that rubbish should be still stored in the basement for the Suez men to retrieve. So I do believe that we need to educate our residents in this respect. I also feel that we should express our thanks to our waste management department, who manage this issue like a military operation and are always responsive and courteous to our residents. Finally, I would like to say something in favour of our bin men, who are the unsung heroes of this enterprise, who go out, come rain or shine, to make sure that our streets are pristine. They are always cheerful and helpful, and we all owe them a debt of gratitude.
Councillor Beckett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As this is my maiden speech, I'd like to pay tribute to my predecessors in this role. First of all, I'd like to thank Portia Thaxter, who I am delighted to have still as a Notting Dale councillor. Portia has been a fantastic role model for me. She is a font of experience, of wisdom, a committed and hard-working councillor and a genuine community leader. The biggest downside to working with Portia is that it takes ages to get anywhere. Every 5 steps, someone else will come up to greet her. She truly knows everybody in North Kensington. I'd also like to thank Emma Dent-Code, who really needs no introduction in this chamber. Emma represented St Helens for 4 years in 2022. She was a councillor for Golborne Ward from 2006, and she was also, of course, our first Labour Member of Parliament for Kensington, elected in 2017. She has dedicated many years of service to the people of Kensington. Madam Mayor, I'd like to now move on to the motion at hand. I'd also like to open by thanking Lloyd North, Councillor North over here, and Dodd Noble, and congratulate him on his maiden speech, and particularly Councillor North for your the openness with which you approached this motion.
I really appreciate the attempts of building cross-party support, and I really would welcome that from everyone in the council. It's that attitude of openness and collegiate engagement that I think is often lacking in politics at all levels. Unfortunately, I won't be supporting this motion, and it's not because I don't care about clean streets. I think every resident in this borough wants clean streets. It's because, unfortunately, too much of this motion is vague, unclear, and I think ultimately redundant. The language and intention of the motion is at odds with the approach of the mover, and I genuinely regret that. So let's just start with what's in the motion. It asks on the leadership team to deliver on manifesto commitments over the next few years. That is not a plan. That's not a date. There's no budget line. There's no measurable target we can hold anyone to. Compare other pledges in your manifesto. 12 million for step-free access to South Kensington, or 4.5 million for the parks by 2030. Those are costed pledges. This pledge has also appeared twice now, in the manifesto in March and again in this motion tonight. On both occasions, no figures have been attached to it. So it doesn't really ask us to do anything new. Time-banded commercial waste and e-buggies in every area were already Conservative manifesto commitments before this council was even elected in May. The majority group was elected on that manifesto, so what is this motion simply for? It just asks the majority group to mark your own homework, restating your own policy back to yourself. If this is really about better waste collection for everyone, it would have been written to bring the whole council with it. Instead, it's been written to be voted through on the nod by one party. Madam Mayor, let me be clear, I would really welcome motions that we can all get behind. And by the way, Pembridge Hospice could be an excellent example of that. I think that's what the residents of Kensington and Chelsea want to see, because here's the part that should really worry all residents. Even if we accepted the aim of this motion, why should we trust this administration to deliver it competently? Let's look at a really good example. Pembroke Road North Depot, the council's own main depot for waste collection. It has been closed since November 2023 and will cost taxpayers £10 million because of avoidable failures by this administration. It was closed for structural failures. It is now a neglected structure notice. It is supported by props the council had to buy for £825,000. The council has been paying £964,000 every year to rent temporary depots. That is nearly £2 million that's spent on the depot while it's just standing still. So how much will it cost to fix it? £10.1 million, and another £5.5 million 15 years later. This is all from the council's own internal audit, and that audit was very clear about what went wrong. It was systematic failure of escalation and oversight across multiple council teams. I understand that those people responsible, the managers, have since left the council, but I haven't seen any evidence that lessons have been learned. So when this motion asks us to trust the leadership team to roll out buggies in every area, I ask the council, trust them with what? Can we trust them with our basic waste infrastructure, the infrastructure that this administration has let fall apart? Madam Mayor, clean streets matter. Warm words and uncosted promises are not a substitute for competent management. This motion asks us to trust an administration whose own record on managing waste infrastructure should give every resident pause. For these reasons, we'll be voting against.
Thank you very much for your maiden speech, Councillor Beckett. Now, Councillor Wade.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have a plethora of maiden speeches, so I hope I get your name right. Dodd Noble, very good name, and Councillor Bennett, and of course my colleague Sophia is just about to make hers. We support the motion, but we've got some ideas. We would like to see pole-mounted bins in high footfall areas, especially where you've got a lot of hotels, to prevent waste dumping. However, we also would like to have some idea of the scheduling of jet washing, high footfall areas, off the main high streets. Again, these are places with hotels. And the streets that look bad when they're dumping. It looks bad for business, it looks bad for the borough, it depresses residents. So one size doesn't fit all. What actually works on Portobello Road or Notting Hill Gate, High Street Cairn, King's Road doesn't necessarily work well, needless to say, for Earls Court Road, where we have food, and only 3 retail outlets. So I'm saying, let's look at this creatively. Now, it was suggested that paladins should be removed. Now, these have been transformative in certain streets, but I would consider, is the design right? I mean, I've recently been in Italy, and actually you get paladins where council taxpayers have a smart card, so they can actually swipe in on the paladin and be able to dispose of the stuff 24/7. I agree with Councillor Rossi, we have to educate residents not to put their stuff out on pavements, but that does actually mean we've got to have enforcement. So we have to have enforcement on fast food waste, which is staining our pavements. It's smelly, it gets covered, everything gets covered by foxes, but it's also where we have accommodation where they have insufficient waste disposal for the density of the properties. It's also potentially dangerous for people to go down into the basement because they're not lit. So I think we should be creative on that. I'd also like to ask the lead member to look at the methodology of actually doing food waste disposal. Where you have single occupancy houses, it's relatively easy for somebody to put something on their front steps. But there is evidently a pushback from people who live in multi-occupied houses where they have one person, normally the person in the basement, and I live in a basement, and I have to take everybody's up to the street. So I think that it's perhaps we need to be looking at, everybody wants to do it. They want to have the opportunity to dispose of paper or packaging or general waste, but food waste is actually the majority of the waste that is being put aside. So can we just look at perhaps paladins, how they're dealt with, and also about how we deal with food waste in high-density areas? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Hyde?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I speak to the motion, may I please extend our warm welcome on behalf of all of us to Mr. Reason Sr., who has flown over all the way from the US to see his son, Councillor Jack Reason, in action. Thank you. Now, may I also congratulate Councillor Dodd-Noble, Councillor Beckett on their excellent, excellent maiden speech. Now, moving to the motion. I've lived in Camden Ward for almost 40 years. In my youth, as a full-time working mother, one of the many privileges of living in RBKC was the clean streets and the regular bin collections. I strongly second my colleague, Councillor Lloyd North, who is moving the motion of a collective experience on the doorsteps while we were campaigning. The constant mantra, keep twice-weekly bin collections at all costs. And it was irrespective of north, south, east, west of the borough. That's what everybody wanted. I think this is almost one of our strongest USPs. But if I may, I shall quote another long-standing resident of Camden Ward. It is a privilege to live in RBKC, and unlike so many other boroughs in London, we are fortunate enough to benefit from 2 refuse collections per week. This is an integral part of keeping our streets clean and safe, and it would be a real shame and a significant downgrade in the experience of the residents if this were to change. Many residents view double refuse collection as a key part of what we receive from our council tax, and with council taxes going up, It would be a terrible shame if our twice-weekly refuse collections were suddenly to find themselves at risk. I have numerous, I can quote many, many residents for whom clean streets are very important. All my colleagues previously have spoken very eloquently and excellently expressed the civic pride, our passion as residents about the borough. But one thing I would add to hotels from what Councillor Wade said and following on to Councillor Rossi, yes, we do need to educate our businesses, especially hotels, and the Airbnbs. Time and time again, residents come up to us and tell us that Airbnb operators are incredibly guilty, very guilty, of leaving the waste on the pavements and at antisocial hours and expecting it to be collected, and often left by the local residents to call the council and street line. So we do need to educate. Not only that, I would also beg the lead member to really clamp down on enforcement of this, because businesses have to take responsibility. It cannot be just for the residents who have to pick up the pieces. And finally, I would also like to add, extend my thanks, as Councillor Rossi said, to all the road sweepers and all the bin men who do the work absolutely excellently, but even more so, our excellent Camden Ward on my street, Gloucester Walk, in my area, Bob, who works day in, day out, irrespective of what the weather is, and even if I offer him a drink, he said, no miss, I've got too much work to do. So thanks to all, and I really, really hope very much that this motion receives cross-party support. Thank you.
Councillor Garola.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is a great honour to stand here today as a newly elected Liberal Democrat councillor for Earls Court. Before anything else, I would like to thank Tim Verboven, who served Earls Court before me with great energy and commitment to the role, and worked hard alongside Councillor Wade to stand up for residents and champion the issues that matter most to our community. Also, Hamish Adurian, with whom I know both Linda and Tim established a strong working relationship, always with our residents in mind. And I owe a huge thanks to Councillor Linda Wade, who has represented Earls Court tirelessly for the last 16 years. Linda is the most compassionate champion for residents, a formidable advocate for our community, and a councillor who never stops fighting for the area she loves. Going anywhere with Linda is also really difficult. You get everywhere really late for exactly the same reasons Councillor Beckett just mentioned. The election in May delivered a strong result for the Liberal Democrats in Earls Court, where we increased our majority. In fact, we created a monopoly. That result reflects years of dedicated local service by Linda and a fair and positive campaign focused on residents and local issues only. But it is also a reflection of the frustration many residents feel about the neglect Earls Court has experienced from both past and current leaderships of this council. For too long, residents have felt that Earls Court concerns have not received the attention they deserve. Earls Court residents know their Liberal Democrat councillors are there when needed, and I intend to continue that tradition through strong and frequent resident engagement and casework. Madam Mayor, even though my husband's and mine first flat was actually in Hornton Street back in 1999, my first time in this council chamber was in October 2019, attending my British citizenship ceremony, feeling proud and grateful as I am today to become a British citizen in the borough. That has always been my home. My loved home is a beautiful borough, as has been mentioned here a lot of times. I also came into this chamber more recently as a resident to ask a question at a full council meeting like this concerning the condition and future of Earls Court Road and the impact that the Earls Court Development Centre has had and continues to have on our community. Those concerns remain unaddressed, and Earls Court deserves better. Our high street should be the beating heart of the community. It should be welcoming, vibrant, and prosperous. Residents deserve streets
that are cleaner, safer, and better maintained. Local businesses deserve support. Visitors should arrive in Earls Court and immediately recognize it as one of London's most distinctive and attractive neighborhoods. Instead, they see dirty pavements, persistent waste problems, leaking bins, and the continuing spread of gaming, gambling, and betting shops. The council seems unable or unwilling to stop. These issues gravely affect residents, businesses, and some of the most vulnerable people in our community and indeed in the whole borough. Madam Mayor, the extending waste and litter collections motion is commendable. Our residents demand cleaner streets, and we support the twice-weekly collections and buggies. But a cleaner and greener borough is more than twice-weekly collections and buggies. It is about ensuring that waste disposal policies are flexible enough and work for our residents, that these policies consider the small size of many housing units and don't leave residents with no option but to dispose on the street outside collection time. It is about policies that also improve our dire recycling record, where RBKC is the second worst performing borough in London. The Council should explore alternative solutions. Councillor Wade has mentioned a lot already. Look at collections and paladins, giving residents more flexibility. It's also about tighter commercial waste management and flight tipping enforcement. Time-banded waste management isn't a silver bullet. Earls Court Road, constant piles of commercial waste are a proof of that. So it's time the Council enforces, but also innovates and learns from other boroughs where commercial areas are cleaner or that have better enforcement policies like Merton or Westminster. So we support this motion, but we also look forward to working more closely with the lead members to make the borough truly cleaner, greener, and fairer. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for your maiden speech. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and congratulations to Councillor Garola on her maiden speech, to Councillor Dodd Noble on his excellent maiden speech, seconding the motion, and of course to Councillor Beckett on his very eloquent speech. No doubt Councillor Beckett won't be long before those of us on this side of the chamber hope that someone will rid us of this meddlesome councillor. Madam Mayor, I was speaking to another father at the my daughter's nursery the other day, and he'd recently moved into the area, and I was asking him what whether he enjoyed living here. And one of the things he mentioned, unprompted by me, not knowing that I was a councillor, was how impressed he was by the twice-weekly bin collection. And this isn't just because dads enjoy talking about bin collections, that may have been part of it. It was also because he had just moved from Camden, and in the Councillor North's characteristic spirit of wanting to be apolitical, I won't mention who runs Camden, but over there he was dealing with his bins being collected just once a fortnight. So the fact that they were collected 4 times more frequently made a really big difference to the quality of life of his young family living in a flat in central London. And indeed, it was to use his words, it was part of what he felt made us a proper borough. So it therefore gives me great pleasure to support this motion, which not only renews our vows on twice-weekly bin collections, but extends them to things which are really important to our residents, including buggies and time banding. And in doing so, we ensure that we will always remain a proper borough. Thank you.
I now invite Councillor Rendell as the lead member to respond to the debate for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, everyone who's contributed. I think, given the strength of feeling and the amount of people who have put their name forward to speak tonight, has proved that this motion is really important. People want to see clean streets, Madam Mayor. I think local government, in fact, was started in the 19th century to deal with sewerage and waste management. That was the initial part of what a council is meant to do. So this goes back to the fundamental Council 101 procedure. And I must disagree with Councillor Beckett, because I think people want to see this. People want to see our clean streets. This motion is to reconfirm that this council is committed to doing what the people ask for, and that's living in a safe, clean environment. I'd like to thank Councillor North for bringing the motion. I think it's really important. And I'd like to thank those members who have spoken for the first time tonight. Councillor Dodd Noble, welcome. You've come from the brighter borough to the better borough, I may say so. So it's pleased to see that our twice-weekly bin collections have impressed even the most Wandsworth member. With Councillor Beckett, thank you. Well done. I like the suit, by the way, nice and summery. So it's really great to see some kind of fashion coming back to the chamber. Some people here, by the way. I just want to say that. Councillor Gurula, many thanks for your maiden speech as well. I think it's really important as well, meeting all members of Earls Court a few weeks ago as well, kind of really highlighted this issue. And I think Earls Court has a particular acute challenge with waste and waste management. Evidently, there is issues, I think. I think the increase of takeaways has had a huge impact the last few years. Coffee cups, there's more street food these days. Of course, what hasn't helped recently, we've had a distinct lack of rain for many months, which, while in part, hasn't cleaned the streets themselves. The motion, Madam Mayor, I agree with, but we do have a challenge. We do have a fundamental challenge, which is the £127 million that this council is facing. So this is really important for us to face, to say that, yes, we are still committed to clean streets, better streets, and how we can kind of go and do that. Now, the motion can't put in there money to spend. Understanding orders, we can't say that. But I'm going to work with officers and my friend, Councillor Thalasides, on the enforcement element to see what we can do. Because I think this motion will spurn us even more, Madam Mayor, to get our streets clean. Now, as you rightly said, Madam Mayor, I got married last week, 2 weeks ago. Thank you. I must admit, I have lost this Reading wing twice now. So don't tell Julian this, but you heard it here first. But one of the things that I found really interesting from all the people who attended from 13 countries around the world, to say that what we did in RBKC, proactively, mind you, not at any pressure from me, was how interesting and clean our streets were. And that's compared to cities like Toronto, Washington, D.C., Karachi, and other and other places around the world. So I think we can really hold that high. I think when we're in it, when we're in RBKC, we can somehow perhaps not look at it from an objective perspective, because I think we do have really tremendous clean streets. And as Councillor Bennett said about Camden, although I think your Henry II joke fell rather flat there, but we can work on that in the future. It is really important to say we do have twice-weekly bin collections. We will commit to further street enforcement. We will commit to cleaning our waste management, cleaning our up our streets more. We're working really closely as well with the Western Riverside Waste Authority, because they have innovations in mind on how we can even improve getting our waste better, which will improve our borough here at the same time. So thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is a great, I think that I'm somewhat perplexed, Madam Mayor, though, in a way, before I finish, because if Labour do reject this motion tonight, as they did with the e-bikes last time, I think these are really welcome motions that all residents support, and just flat out saying, no, we don't want to extend waste. Councillor Marshall, I do my job. I'm here to elect to do a job. I've been doing it for 8 years. I have done it. You see how well this borough is working. Well, that's on the base. Councillor Marshall, yeah. We do the job. As you know, we are the most efficient council in the country, as improved by the Empower report, which is an independent body. Our LGA report is the best in the country. So even Labour councillors have said this council is the best it can be. We have CQC outstanding. We have Ofsted outstanding. So that's what we've done for 8 years. But there's more we can do. Of course there's more we can do. There's always more we can do. That's why we put the motion here. That's why we've done it. that, you know, we're never going to be complacent. We always have to keep our feet on our toes, Madam Mayor. But thank you. I'll leave the rest of the chamber to wrap up. But thank you, everyone, for your commentary.
Councillor North, you are the mover of the motion, and would you like to respond to the debate?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And can I thank all the colleagues tonight for their positive contribution to this motion and the way in that most of us want to work together to improve. Yes, there is areas that we need to address, and I'm grateful to the lead member for confirming that we will be working together to achieve those. And you mentioned the Environment Select Committees. We will be visiting Smugglers Way, and we will be looking and learning at what the future is there, and also the improvements on food waste collection, which is on the cards. So if I may just recap on some of the comments, because very much I treat that as a listening exercise. Councillor Dodd-Noble, it's great to recognise that there is a non-glamorous side to this motion that we're raising today, but it's an important part of what we do as a council. Councillor Rossi, very much like your idea at the value of Streetline, and that we need to do more on enforcements and refuse times, and that's very much taken on board. Councillor Beckett, I'm very sorry. I genuinely hope that this will be a cross-party motion that we could support, and showing all those residents that are watching online that we do support this as a project. I'm sorry that the Labour group can't bring themselves to support this motion, and all I'll say to my colleagues is we know what the headline is for our e-newsletters this summer, don't we? Councillor Wade, I'm very pleased that the Lib Dems will be supporting this motion, and I genuinely would like to work with you and listen to what you've said tonight as part of the agenda for the Environment Select Committee. It is something that's very important, and I take on board what you said very, very closely. Councillor Hudd, I'm glad you got a shout out for Bob. He is indeed a great asset to Camden Ward, and I know that lots of residents very much welcome him there. Councillor Garola, again, thank you for your maiden speech, and we welcome the Lib Dems supporting this motion. Thank you. Councillor Rendell, I also would like to thank him for his commitment. Despite the fairer funding formula from local government, we are committing to going further and doing better, and we are already on the track to being the best council, and I think this is going to be putting us even further on the right track. And I take on board his promise also to improve on enforcement as well. So thank you, colleagues, for your support. I'm sorry it couldn't get universal support, but I thank the opposition from the Lib Dems for supporting this motion as well. And thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. I now put the motion to the vote. Would those for the motion please show? Would those against the motion please show? No, just ask for abstentions. Any abstentions? I declare the motion carried. And thanks again for those who made their maiden speech tonight. Now, the next motion is making Kensington and Chelsea safer. Do the whips agree that the meeting can run? We might actually finish in time. What do you think? Yeah? Okay. No. Motion 2 is about making the borough safer. Would Councillor Petit formally move the motion and Councillor Hardisty second, please?
I would like to move the motion, Madam Mayor.
Seconded.
I now invite Councillor Petit to speak for up to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This council knows that the prevention and detection of crime rests with the police, not with local government. And I want to begin by thanking the officers of our safer neighbourhood teams who serve our communities every day and whose work is valued on all sides of this chamber. But gratitude should not become complacency, and residents are telling us that all is not well. In my own ward of Norland, a few weeks ago, residents were shaken by reports of a stabbing in Portland Road, which is a very quiet residential street. And at every ward panel I attend, I hear the same concerns about robberies, shoplifting, drug dealing, drug using, and other serious antisocial behavior everywhere in our borough that too many residents have simply learned to live with, and they should not have to. So we say tonight to the Mayor of London, in whose hands the policing of this capital rests, give us more police on the streets. Reopen the 24 front counters at Kensington Police Station for one. Restore a full service at Notting Hill Police Station. Our residents do not ask for the moon, they ask for a police station with their lights on. This council cannot do the work of the police, and it should not claim to do so. But we're not bystanders either, and our records show it. The street enforcement team we introduced last term has issued more than 8,000 fixed penalty notices in the past 12 months. That's 8,000 occasions in which this council acted where others might have looked away. Over 5 years, we've put more than £450,000 into our borough CCTV network, most recently installing new cameras in Golborne Ward, because residents asked for them, with live footage linked directly to police radios. And Madam Mayor, do not take my words for it. It does work. The College of Policing's own crime reduction toolkit, gathered over 40 years, finds that crimes are 13% lower when CCTV is present, vehicle crimes 14% lower, and drug-related crimes 20% lower. And the evidence is even stronger when cameras are paired with real enforcement, which is precisely how officers would like to work. A camera does not replace a constable, but it deters the offender, it catches the criminal in the act, and it hands our police the necessary evidence that turns an arrest into a conviction. But crime and antisocial behavior do not keep office hours, as we all know, and much of what residents describe happens after dark, outside licensed premises, around our stations, on our high streets, at exactly the hour when our current enforcement day has ended. If our record is to mean anything, it must extend into the night. I therefore call on to the lead member for Resident Services, Planning and Enforcement to bring a report to the leadership team to introduce a nighttime enforcement team in the borough, as well as 50 new CCTV cameras during this term, as this majority promised our residents during the election campaign. Madam Mayor, I didn't come into this chamber to score points on safety, and I hope no member did. There is no Conservative way to walk home safely. There is no Labour way to walk home safely. And there is no Lib Dem way to walk home safely. There is only the residents on their own street at night. And it is for them that I move this motion, and I ask every member of the chamber on all sides to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Hardesty, do you wish to speak at this point?
So obviously, as we know, policing is a question for the Mayor, but I do appreciate and indeed see the work of the Council that does in supporting tackling antisocial behaviour. Pembridge residents have expressed concern about the closure of the Notting Hill Gate police station and closures of police counters across the borough. And residents often say to me, the presence themselves actually helps as a deterrent. I think the addition of a nighttime enforcement team, particularly in areas like Notting Hill Gate, where we see increases in shoplifting, will be a great asset. And I would also like to congratulate Councillor Beckett, Dodd Noble, and Councillor Gorilla for their lovely maiden speeches today. Thank you.
Councillor Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a privilege to speak on this motion as a newly elected councillor for Earls Court Ward. I wish to begin by thanking the residents of Earls Court Ward for taking a chance on me, and I pledge to serve them to the best of my ability, irrespective of how they voted or whether they voted at all. Earls Court sits at the heart of London life with its unique tube and rail links, and is often mislabelled as a transient place, but nothing further could be from the truth. Residents in Earls Court know it to be a tight-knit community, woven together by residents' associations, conservation areas, garden committees, and neighbourhood WhatsApp groups. Its strength is its community spirit, Madam Mayor. That was on display only last week when residents objected to invidious licensing applications that would damage their high street. As one officer commented to me, we always know when an Earls Court application is in town. And its other strength is demonstrated by its community engagement. And that was demonstrated only last month with the Longridge Street Party, where residents of all backgrounds and communities came together to celebrate what they have in common, not what divides them. It is a privilege to represent the ward I call my home. And as a practicing criminal barrister, I commit to defending its interests fearlessly and prosecuting the case for a better Earls Court relentlessly. Although, Madam Mayor, I do appreciate it's been a tough week for lawyers in politics, I hope to be more successful than the one we've just seen depart, but I do hope to take with me the values of commitment to public service in this role. But I'm under no illusions, Madam Mayor, as to the high bar that has been set, and I pay tribute to former councillors Adorian and Verboven for their public service. I didn't know Councillor Adorian well, but I knocked on many doors before the 7th of May, and honest, hard-working, community-minded were often phrases that residents would tell me they felt towards him. In addition, Councillor Verboven is to a large extent why I'm here. He guided me through this process, and his support has been invaluable. He touched the lives of many people in Earls Court with his commitment to casework and improving their lives. But I'm fortunate, Madam Mayor, to have as my lodestar Councillor Wade, someone who is committed to public service, who has fiercely defended our residents, and who has helped countless people in our ward. I would venture as far as to say no one has done more for Earls Court in modern times than Councillor Wade. Turning to the motion at hand, I support this motion. I support more CCTV. I support a nighttime street enforcement team. But I gently say to the Conservative group, this motion could have gone further. And I hope it is the start of a conversation about how we as a council step up to this real challenge and not the end of the discussion. And I pay tribute to the lead member for this matter for agreeing to meet regularly with members of the Earls Court Ward Councillor group so that we can discuss what more we can do. Madam Mayor, I was shocked to find out this week from community safety officers that in the last 12 months, if one looks at antisocial behaviour recorded and reported, Earls Court had 767 instances of antisocial behaviour reported and recorded. The nearest ward as a comparison was Stanley Ward at 411. There is an issue that we need to bear down on, and residents do not want to hear what others could do, but what we can do. And that is the challenge that we face as a council. And so I'm disappointed that this motion doesn't include looking at whether community police hubs, funded in part by the council but also with stakeholders, isn't part of the solution. It can be, it has been in Redbridge Council, it has been at Greenwich Council, it can be part of the solution. I was disappointed to see that the hostels working group that was being driven forward by Councillor Rossi and also Councillor Wade hasn't been continued because important work was being done. I do commend this motion. I will support it, but it could have gone further.
Councillor Ortiz, thank you for your maiden speech. Councillor Yangson, another barrister.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like London buses. I congratulate Councillors Dodd Noble, Beckett, Ortiz and Grillo on their, on their maiden speeches. And I would also like to thank the departing Borough Commander, Superintendent Owen Ronalden, for all of the hard work that he's put in keeping our residents and businesses safe in this borough. And I would also ask the lead member to engage very closely with Superintendent McDonough, Owen Ronalden's replacement, to make sure that our residents are kept safe. I'll make 2 points, if I can, Madam Mayor, and I obviously rise in full support of the motion. At the Redcliffe Ward Police Panel a few weeks ago, unfortunately the Labour MP wasn't there, but the feedback from residents was we need more Metropolitan Police on the streets. Yeah. One particular resident was told us about how burglars are breaking into her home in the daytime because the criminals are working around now with impunity. And this must stop. I've been attending the Notting Hill Carnival since the 90s, and I was there last year, and there are hundreds and hundreds of police on the streets. In Redcliffe Ward, when we have local football matches at Stamford Bridge, we have vans of police that are parked in the ward. So when the Metropolitan Police wants to take action, they do take action, and we ask the lead member to work very closely with the Metropolitan Police to give all of our residents across the borough, from north to south, east and west, the protection they deserve. My second point, Madam Mayor, is I sit on the Kensington and Chelsea and Westminster Business Chamber of Commerce, and I want to make this pledge for businesses to get the support that they need from Metropolitan Police. In Redcliffe, we've got Fulham Road, and we've also got Hollywood Road, as well as Old Brompton Road, and some of those shops, as Councillor Pettit said, suffer from shoplifting and other violence against the staff that work there. And of course, that is totally unacceptable. Violence anywhere is totally unacceptable, and I urge all members of the Chamber to fully support this motion. So thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for bringing this motion to the Chamber, and I think it should get cross-chamber support. Thank you.
I now call on Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and congratulations to so many of my fellow councillors who have given their maiden speeches tonight. Councillor Dodd Noble, Councillor Garola, Councillor Ortiz, and my fellow councillor in St Helens Ward, Councillor Beckett. And thank you to my colleagues for raising such an important issue on making Kensington and Chelsea a safer place for our residents. We agree that more CCTV would make our residents feel safer, and in St Helens we recently approved a CCTV camera as part of our neighbourhood community infrastructure levy budget due to demand from our residents, though I was surprised that we needed to fund it through their limited community infrastructure budget. I'd also like to draw this Chamber's attention to the Council's record on antisocial behaviour that was highlighted in this motion, where they mention more than 8,000 fixed penalty notices over the past 12 months following the introduction of a street enforcement team. This street enforcement team, referencing the 8,000 fixed penalty notices, appears to be from an outsourced street enforcement team, not from the Council's own team, engaged by the Council last year in a pilot. This, according to the Council's procurement strategy, they expect that this outsourced enforcement company will be able to keep 60% of any enforcement revenue that they raise. This seems designed to motivate and incentivize an outsourcing agency to issue more penalty notices and can lead to perverse outcomes for our residents. The first is that the enforcement approach from outside contractors and what that might mean for our residents. Other councils have had a negative track record working with outside contractors on enforcement, with one issue being reports that their staff harass residents. Just last month, the Harrow Council suspended their private enforcement operations with the same company that the Kensington and Chelsea Council engaged for the pilot scheme, after 2 of the officers there threatened a member of the public. In the council's procurement strategy, which weights quality as 70% of the criteria, they included enforcement approach with just a 15% weighting. I'm therefore concerned about how this outsourcing arrangement will impact the mental health and well-being of our residents. A second perverse outcome of contracting outsiders to enforce issue enforcement penalties in Kensington and Chelsea is that it motivates them to raise the most revenue, which may not always align with delivering safety for people for our residents. Over half of the penalty notices issued by the outside contractor in their first 12 months were for cigarette butts. This raises revenue for the council, and I understand that our residents value clean streets. But there is comparatively little attention in the way that they're enforcing penalty notices on forms of antisocial behavior that our residents would associate with their safety and well-being. And the third is a potential disparity in where the enforcement takes place related to revenue raising. Fly tipping is one such example. Residents in St. Helens frequently tell us that fly tipping is a major issue. And yet I note that just one notice was issued by these outside contractors in over a year, and that North Kensington has had just 6% of the contractor-issued notices for fly tipping, which seems disproportionate with the potential need. We as a Labour group support initiatives to improve safety and well-being for our residents, but we are concerned that the enforcement mentioned in this motion relies on outsourcing and are concerned about whether this really delivers value for money for the council and safer neighbourhoods for our residents. This is one of the reasons we will not be supporting this motion.
Now we have the treat of another maiden speech, Councillor Ballara.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, everyone. I'm Hina Ballara, newly elected councillor for Chelsea Riverside Ward. I'm honoured to be able to stand for the first time in this chamber and would like to congratulate all my fellow councillors on their maiden speeches. I'd like to start by thanking my residents of Chelsea Riverside for putting their trust in me, especially as this was a marginal ward, and I don't take that lightly. Thank you to all councillors and to every activist who came out day after day to spread our message and to stand up for what we believe. Thank you to my dad, who flew down just to support this campaign, and to my mother-in-law for her constant support and blessings. And most of all, thank you to my husband, who has spent more evening than he'd like holding the fort at home while I've been out on the doorstep. And I would not be standing in this chamber without any of you. So thank you very much. The result is also a reflection of this council's leadership team and the reputation my predecessor, Gerard Hargreaves, built over his years serving this ward. Gerard was and still is hugely popular with residents. I have lost count on the doorstep when people have told me unprompted how much they valued him, alongside my colleague Sonia Zedwinik, who also served Chelsea Riverside. They laid foundations I'm proud to build on. I know I have big shoes to fill, and I look forward to working with and learning from my two experienced ward colleagues, Councillor Laura Burns and Councillor Dr. Max Chauhan. It's a genuine privilege to represent Chelsea Riverside, a ward that holds together very different ways of life, from the World's End Estate to Lotts Road to the houseboats on Cheney Walk, and somehow make them feel like one community. I would also like to thank Councillor Stephanie Petit for bringing this motion and Councillor Georgia Hardesty for seconding it, because this is exactly the issue residents raise with me week in, week out. As a mother of a 17-year-old, I know that feeling very well. I worry each day when my daughter travels back home after college. And on the doorstep, I have heard the same thing from residents of every age. An elderly resident no longer feels comfortable walking back from shops alone, and others whose cars have been broken into. This motion is right to be clear-eyed about where responsibility sits. The prevention of crime sits with the police, not this council. And I want to thank my local sergeants, our PCs and PCSOs, who I'm working closely with since being elected. Unfortunately, like my fellow councillor, Lloyd North, I cannot promise not to bash the mayor tonight. Why has he cut 24 hours front counters? Why has he closed Notting Hill Police Station's full service? This is not a promise he made once and failed to keep. He made it in 2017, again in 2019, and once more in his own 2024 manifesto, that every borough would have one 24/7 front counter. And now, in this borough, he's on the verge of breaking it altogether. Residents deserve a police presence they can walk into, not just one they hope to see on patrol. And it is the mayor who has taken that away from them. Where I want to focus, though, is on not what within is our gift as a council. Our street enforcement team has issued more than 8,000 fixed penalty notices in the past 12 months alone. This is a council actively backing up residents on ground. And this motion rightly pushes further, asking the lead member of Resident Service Planning and Enforcement to bring forward a nighttime enforcement team and 50 new CCTV cameras, exactly as we promised residents in our manifesto. But there is something residents themselves can do, and I want to say this directly to anyone watching tonight. Report it, every incident, report it. This reporting becomes casework, and the casework lets our police team make case for extra resource in our area. So, Madam Mayor, my ask tonight is straightforward, a clear message to the Mayor of London that residents need to see more police on the ground, and I support the motion of having nighttime enforcement and new CCTV cameras. Thank you to everyone in this chamber.
Okay,
for the
thank you
welcome.
very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for your maiden speech. Now, would Councillor Thelicites, as the lead member, respond to the debate? Oh, I have a few more, sorry. Shows that I'm hungry. Councillor Beckett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the interests of your dinner, I'll keep this as brief as I can. And also, congratulations to Councillor Hina Ballara for her maiden speech. Before I begin, I'd just also like to thank Councillor Stephanie Petit for her motion. I've worked with Steph in another life as well, and I commend her as an excellent ward councillor who I know works particularly hard on antisocial behaviour cases, so thank you for everything you've done there. Just to repeat myself, as I said at the previous response to the motion, this is yet again asking for us to support a motion that's calling on the council to do something they're already going to do. I feel like this is a waste of our council time. I feel like that we could be coming up with something which is a bit more productive. And I'd like to make the point that the Mayor has been doing something much more productive, which is increasing the Met's budget by 6.4% in real cash increase. So that is doing something, and that is leading to better outcomes for people. I'd also like to thank Councillor Shaw for her points about the the flaws of the motion and wrongly assigning credit to an internal council street enforcement team for the work that they didn't do. But I think that one response to Councillor Ballara on the question about counters, we all want our residents to feel safer, and one of the things the residents tell us, if you go to any community meeting, if you go to ward council meetings, as I'm sure we all do, is that we would like to see more police on the beat. We'd like to see more police on patrol. And if you ask the Met why they have chosen to close the wards, the counters, the reason they give is to free up the time of their officers so they're not on desks, and so they're actually out on the beat solving crimes. That is the reason they give, because only 5% of crimes are reported at police counters. That is the reason they give, because they want to have action. So while I think while this motion has some great points in it, we cannot support it. Thank you.
Councillor Idris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to congratulate all my new colleagues on their maiden speeches. There's quite a number of you, so I don't want to miss anyone. So it's all of you, congratulations. I'm pleased to support this motion. The safety of our residents must always be one of our highest priorities. While the prevention of crime is rightly the responsibility of the Metropolitan Police, the Council also has an important role to play. We have a duty to support the police and to use every tool available to help prevent crime and tackle antisocial behavior. Our residents tell us they want practical action. They want to feel safe walking home, taking their children to school, and enjoying everything this borough has to offer. That is why I welcome the proposal for a dedicated nighttime enforcement team and an additional 50 CCTV cameras across the borough. Madam Mayor, if anyone questions whether CCTV makes a difference, they only need to look at Brompton and Handstown ward. Using NSIL money, our ward has delivered 18 new CCTV cameras to strengthen security for residents, businesses, and visitors. That investment was driven by local priorities. Residents wanted greater reassurance and practical measures to help deter crime and antisocial behavior, and we listened. These cameras support the police by providing valuable evidence, assisting investigations, and importantly, acting as a deterrent. They are not a substitute for neighborhood policing, but they are an important tool that complements it. Our experience shows that targeted investment works, and I am pleased to see that approach being expanded across the borough. I also strongly support the proposal for a nighttime enforcement team. Residents don't stop experiencing antisocial behavior at 5 o'clock, and our enforcement response shouldn't stop there either. That's why a dedicated nighttime enforcement team is such a welcome proposal. We have already seen the success of the street enforcement team, which in the past year has issued more than 8,000 fixed penalty fines. Those figures speak for themselves. Visible enforcement works. It changes behavior, and it delivers results. Madam Mayor, community safety is not choosing between more police or more prevention. We need both. We should continue to press the Mayor of London to provide the Met Police with the resources they need, while also ensuring this council plays its full part. This motion delivers on commitments made to residents and builds on successful initiatives already being delivered in wards such as mine, Brompton and Handstown. For those reasons, Madam Mayor, I am very pleased to support this motion. I encourage colleagues from across the chambers to do the same. Thank you.
Sina, you'd like to speak? Councillor Sina.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I hadn't had a speech prepared, but I was prompted by something which Councillor Idrissa said. And in tradition, I'd start by thanking all maiden speakers tonight, my colleague Councillor Beckett, my Liberal Democrat colleagues Garola and Councillor Ortiz, and Councillors Ballara and my Councillor Dodd Noble, who's no longer in the chamber. But I've absolutely no doubt that the proposer of this motion and the previous motion came with extremely good intentions. I think for the most part, but not all of it, it's uncontroversial. However, this motion has ignored a fundamental aspect of council policy that is key to public safety, and that is ENSIL, which my colleague, Councillor Idris, has just briefly alluded to. I'm really, really glad to hear about the opportunities which residents in her ward of Brompton and Handstown have had to improve public safety by bidding for more CCTV cameras. In fact, I've just done a little calculation. In the last round of ENSIL funding, Brompton and Handstown funded over £100,000 worth towards cameras. Stanley Ward funded over £100,000 as well to CCTV cameras. But, my colleagues, that's not because there's equality in these allocations. In fact, it's the opposite. Abingdon Ward has £926,000 available in ENSIL funding as of right now. Brompton and Handstown, despite committing to over 100 grand in CCTV, still has £938,000. My ward of Golborne has 1,794. The reason for that is because this council has made the decision to allocate ENSIL funding on a geographic basis as opposed to an at-needs basis. My ward of Golborne not only suffers from crime, it suffers from extremely violent crime. We've had murders in the past few years. And I really, therefore, am confused and disappointed by the totally unserious way in which members of the front bench take this point, which I've raised over and over again. £1,794 of Golborne funding for ENSIL can come nowhere near to paying for the £12,600 that one CCTV camera costs. Think about that. This is a really fundamental point, and therefore, due to the totally cavalier attitude that certain members of the front bench have towards public safety and equality in this council, I also cannot support this motion tonight.
Anyone else before the lead member has a say? Yes, Councillors Addenbrooke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and congratulations to Councillor Beckett, Councillor Ballara, Councillor Dodd Noble, Councillor Ortiz. Have I forgotten anybody? Garola, sorry, I've got you written down, but I can't read. I haven't got my reading glasses on. I just wanted to say to Councillor Ortiz, I know when you came to Council a while ago, you mentioned about these community police hubs. And we have been, when I was the lead member, we did work with the police, and I know Councillor Thalasitis will continue with this work. But it's really difficult to find premises that are suitable to the police for their security reasons. And in fact, the only building that we thought we could all agree on was our council offices in Pembroke Road, which are a stone's throw from the police station. So it just really didn't make sense. So I think the police at that time were still looking. Well, I think we're still looking, Johnny. I'm looking at you now. But the police opted to do drop-ins. So they do drop-ins up in Thorpe Close. They do them on the, Chelsea Riverside and in Earls Court. And they feel that it's better for them to be available to the residents in the community rather than in a locked-up office somewhere. So I'm sure Johnny will continue with this work, but it was really difficult to find anywhere. With regard to the closure of the police front counters, we had two front counters, one at Royalty Studios and one on the Earls Court Road. And that was a commitment that the Met made to Grenfell United that that front counter would remain open. And they closed it without any consultation. And we are the only London borough, inner London borough, without a front counter. It's disgraceful. Last night, 3 young girls in tears because they'd had their bags stolen. They'd lost their passports, they'd lost their money, they didn't know what to do. There was a yellow phone. I mean, it's really shocking. It really is shocking. So I would really, welcome your help in trying to get that front counter reopened. It's really needed by residents. So. So I really do hope we can work together on that. I know Joe is looking into it, but we really need that front counter open. Thank you.
Councillor Burns, did you want to speak?
I don't really need to follow that. That was a really good example, but I was just going to mention NSIL bids. It's not just money that you dish out. It's because it's we know what it is. So some places are more sort of have a bigger pot than others, but it's not just north of the borough. South as well, so we're all struggling, and so this is why you should be supporting it, because it's other means of making that money come forward, and finding another way of finding other resources for counters and for security cameras. So it would be great if you could actually support us. Thank you.
Councillors Thalasites.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I start by congratulating various colleagues across the chamber on some excellent maiden speeches tonight, and thanking my colleagues for bringing this motion. Obviously, a single crime is one too many, and of course we want to bear down on that in partnership with the police. I don't want to Ratnerise the situation too much, though. Knife crime is down 41% in this borough year on year. Robberies of mobile phones, referred to by Councillor Reason earlier, are down by 36% year on year in Kensington and Chelsea. And we've also seen burglaries and thefts down by 14% in the past year. So there is good progress being made, and we should be grateful to the police for the work that they're doing to make this area safer. I met Superintendent McDonough today, and we had a good conversation along with Councillor Campbell, for example, looking at how CCTV really can help the police bring about charges and prosecutions. It's therefore a pity that without front counters and with fewer officers in the Met than before, many of the only prosecutions that will be left will be the arguments that we're making against opposition politicians tonight for their crimes against good governance and closing down police counters, closing down police stations, and endorsing the reduction in the number of officers. So I think one of the really important elements of this motion is that it does call on this council to continue that fight and to work, if possible, on a cross-party basis on those issues. And of course, I'm happy to support the call for a nighttime enforcement team and for additional CCTV, especially in light of those conversations.
So, Councillor Petit, would you like to speak as the mover of the motion?
Yes, thank you everyone for participating to the motion. I think one thing we all have to recognise is once that Johnny has put the numbers in context, how lucky we are to live in what is a safe place. But the thing that struck me the most is how keen we are to all across the chamber, how keen we are to have police officers and bobbies, boots on the street, really. And it's quite interesting because if you read the newspaper, if you read the national news, there is a general police bashing going on. And I think in this borough, actually, what we're saying and what we're crying out loud is more police, please, across the chamber. And I'd like to thank Councillor Addenbrooke for that very specific example about why counters matter. I have cases of domestic violence, women who can't get their food at home. They can't reach their mobile because they are constantly under violent scrutiny. So walking and shopping around the police station were the only way those victims could reach police safety. So thank you, everyone. I think on the ENSIL budget, I completely agree with Councillor Burns' point. It is a motion across the borough, and perhaps something that I should have said is the deployment of those 50 extra CCTV is meant to be done with ward councillors and in agreement with the police and wherever it is necessary. And it's nothing to do with the ENSIL budget, which obviously treats local problems much more granularly. Thank you, Councillor Beckett, for your kind words. I too share the same standards of work ethics, but I disagree about unproductive this conversation is. I actually think it is a productive conversation. Bringing 50 extra new CCTV in this borough is actually not nothing, and having the enforcement team working at night, as we've heard from everyone who spoke eloquently, it is important. So on that note, I'd like to summarize, move the motion forward, and obviously I shall not forget Councillor Ortiz and Councillor Bellara, who delivered an excellent and heartfelt maiden speeches tonight on this very important motion. Thank you so much, Madam Mayor.
I now put the motion to the vote. Would those for the motion please show? Thank you. Would those against the motion please show? Thank you. Are there any abstentions? I declare the motion carried. Due to the time, we will now move to item 15. There are some excellent motions coming up, but we will have to think about them at home and decide how you want to vote on those, because they're very interesting, but you have the whole month of August to do that. Item 15, appointments to committees. A report has been tabled. Do group whips have any amendments to propose? Councillor Addenbrook, can you please speak to nominate the person we are discussing right now? Do you want me to read it? Okay. Councillor Addenbrook to nominate Councillor Siren to replace Councillor Husband on the Investment Committee. All agreed. It is approved. There is no urgent business. This concludes the business of this evening's meetings. The meeting of the council. The next meeting of the council is scheduled to be held on the 21st of October, starting at 6:30. Good evening, everybody, and have a lovely break.